Hey, what's up? Professor Bun B here, along with my compadre, Dr. Anthony Penn. This is, of course, another remix. Glad you guys could join us. Doc, what do you got for us today, man?
Well, so we're talking about hip hop replacing religion. So, Prof, help us understand how this happens. Can you give us a major marker or a major artist that for you signals this transformation?
I think for me personally, I think the artist that speaks to me most in terms of this transition is an artist like DMX. DMX is an artist that a lot of people don't look to nowadays because of course, he has a lot of legal transgressions. But when you look through his history as an artist and his ability to speak to his audience, one of the things that he did that separates himself from most other hip hop artists, if not all other hip hop artists, were the prayers that he would have on his album. These were times where he would go outside of everything that most people would conventionally think of in order to sell an album and really do more about, selling, I would have to say selling Christianity or selling his concept of his connection with his higher power. DMX would actually get on his albums and pray in real time to a higher power. This helped a lot of his listeners, particularly the young men in the inner cities, that it taught them actually how to pray. A lot of them did not know how to speak to a higher power and weren't sure if that higher power would hear them. Seeing an artist like DMX, who has done pretty much everything you could possibly do from a street perspective, still humbling himself before a higher power, show a lot of people how to, pray and humble themselves and not think that just because you've done this doesn't mean that you can't still be saved.
That's really helpful, Prof. One last question for you. So I'd also think in terms of folks like Tupac or Kanye West or Jay-Z, who provided a very different theology, a theology that's grounded in hip hop and on some level dismissive of traditional forms of religion. But
yeah.
This is my question, Prof. Looking into the future, 10 years, do you think that hip hop as a religion will have generated new institutions that replace churches and mosques? How do you think it will further develop?
I think so. I think we're looking at a time where, especially with the millennials, where people are moving further away from the church and closer to a higher power without having to go through these mediums. I think that people like Jay-Z, or Hove, which is in itself a bit of a statement in itself, are showing people that it's all about how you see it. It's all about how you feel it's represented. And you don't have to go to these traditional places that you used to have to go to quote, save yourself. And saving yourself in 2014 has multiple connotations. So it just depends on where you are in life and what about your life you feel you need to, quote, save. People like Kanye have questioned, does Jesus still walk with you depending on the lifestyle that you choose? People like Tupac, of course, have made many, many strong connections between the average man on the street, especially the guy that has the most things, the worst lifestyle and everything going against him, being closer to Jesus or God than most of us who are, quote, going to church every day and living these perfect lives, so to speak. I think that people are moving further and further away from institutions and closer to finding God through themselves and with man.
That's really helpful, Prof. You nailed it. Got something for me?
So, Doc, we've been talking about hip hop and Christianity, and we've been talking about the ways that hip hop has learned from different religious communities. As we look further into the future, say 10 years, like you asked me, do we see Christianity or Islam or any of the religious communities learning from hip hop and maybe adopting some of the things that hip hop has used? Like, is there ways that, we've seen hip hop learn from religious communities. What can religious communities learn from hip hop culture?
There's a tremendous amount that they can learn from hip hop. One of the major lessons involves flexibility and transformation. That if these religious traditions are going to thrive and increase their presence with respect to new generations, the millennials, for example, they're going to have to alter themselves in order to make certain that they are answering the questions that folks are actually asking and that they're using a language, a vocabulary and grammar that makes sense to the generation. But it also seems to me we've reached a point where there's no turning back, that hip hop will continue to develop, will continue to mature as a religious tradition. It will have a robust theology, robust ritual structures. It will have leadership. It will have sacred texts. I wouldn't be surprised if hip hop develops institutional forms that rival churches and mosques.
Wow.
It seems to me that hip hop is so robust. If you take into consideration the growing number of folks in the United States and elsewhere who argue that they are not in line with any religious tradition, but understand themselves as spiritual, you've got a growing population that will find hip hop fitting the need.
That's amazing, Doc. You know, I hope you guys enjoy this as much as we do. We learn a lot from each other, and we hope that you guys are learning from us. That's it for us on this remix session. We're right here at allrealradio.com in the historical Third Ward section of Houston, Texas. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you soon.